All right, so hi everybody. I will go ahead and give a fair warning that I do have a cold that I've been fighting since probably Thursday. So my voice is a little gravelly and I'm thinking a little slow. So if I get a little sidetracked or I look at my notes here, then you know why, because my brain's a little foggy right now. But anyways, so I hope everybody's having a good day today and enjoying this nice weather that we're having. I have a computer that does not do split screen. So what I'm going to do is discuss my topic and kind of give an overview or a little summary of my chosen policy for this project. And then I'm going to attach a PowerPoint to this video so you guys can also review that if there's some things that maybe I skipped and didn't say but they're on the PowerPoint or whatnot, just giving you guys something to look at pretty much. But I can't do a split screen because of the kind of computer that I have. So I'm going to do the video and then do the PowerPoint separate from that. But everything that I'm going to be saying should be on PowerPoint. So first and foremost, for my rural legislative advocacy project, I chose to stay in the topic of child welfare. And also, I do have notes over here that I pulled up earlier that I'm looking at, so that's why I keep looking off to the side. But for my topic, I did choose to stay with the topic, as I stated, the social problem of child welfare. Currently, I am with DCS here in Tennessee, in Sumner County, which is right across the Kentucky-Tennessee state line, which is their version of DCBS. So it's the Department of Children's Services, and I got to experience every unit that they have in the office where I'm located. But I did choose to stay with the foster care or social services unit. And so that does focus on just children, teens, babies. I mean, any child from 0 to 18. And I chose to stay with them because foster care has just been a big thing in my life. It's something I've always been very interested in. I have 2 cousins that are foster kids, or my aunt has full guardianship of. So they've been involved in the foster system and whatnot. So I've always had just kind of a passion for them. So I decided to stick with foster care or social services since this January for the rest of my field stay there. So I did choose the topic of child welfare, and really just looking into the child welfare system and how the state of Tennessee is a building block for kids in the system and families in the system, and the kind of services and the service delivery that these families and these children are given, and how I can help advocate to strengthen this system and this service delivery. So what I wrote down for my paper, and then I'm going to read off to you guys, is that my topic chosen was the social problem of child welfare and strengthening the child welfare service delivery in Tennessee to enhance child and family well-being, particularly, like I said, in Tennessee, since I live in Tennessee and do my field here too. So that was pretty much the topic that I chose, and why. The specific, I guess, an introduction or an abstract to my paper and the chosen policy was to give you guys an explanation of the policy that I chose. That policy, well, I'll give you the abstract first to give you kind of a background. So the purpose of the purpose of my paper is to bring light to the need of in-home prevention services that are fully funded, fully available, and dedicated to children and families in need. So those families who are most vulnerable, like at-risk populations, those living in poverty, those living in rural areas, that need those prevention services to prevent their children coming into state's custody or coming into foster care through the state. Just showing how important it is to have those prevention services. So to link to that, the policy that I chose to look into was the Family First Prevention Services Act. So this act was recently updated in February of last year, so 2018. And it was to change the way that the Title IV-E funds are spent per state. So it is a national policy. So we use it in every single state. Tennessee uses it, Kentucky uses it. But the new update adds these funds into act not only, so before February 2018, it was these funds, these Title IV-E funds were only used to access or only used in foster care maintenance, support programs, trainings for foster parents, trainings for state employees, and adoption assistance, and also some kinship programs. But now, since the update, the Family First Prevention Services Act also supports and funds prevention services in kinship homes and birth family homes, or the placements that if they get placed into family, friends, or family, and then also those kids who are not brought into state's custody because they're trying to, work those services and prevent that from happening. So now this act is dedicated to supporting those programs, those prevention programs, those prevention like workers and everything. This act is also going to fund those services, not just the foster care maintenance. So not just the stuff that happens after a child comes into custody or after a family is involved in custody, but it'll work with the families before those things happen, and to prevent those things from happening. So that's a little overview of my abstract and my introduction to my topic and the policy that I chose. A little bit of a policy analysis. So the social policy identified, like I said, was and I'll give you guys the long technical name, is the Family First Prevention Services Act. And then it's also a part of the Title VII of the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018. So that goes along with the funds and the availability and the funding of the Prevention Services Act goes along with this budget act, just because that's where they, pull their money from, and that's what's connected to it. So there is a budget. Excuse me. So that's the budget financial part of it. For the history in the past, this bipartisan budget act was not connected to this Prevention Services Act. So there wasn't any funding for this, and really there was no discussion of this. It was more, how can we help the families now that they're involved, and what can we do for them now that they're already in foster care? What can we do for the children now that they're already in foster care? So this goes beyond that, and it shows that there is a need for a budget, there is a need for an involvement to prevent these things from happening. So that's a little bit of the history of it, which I already talked a little bit in the beginning of too. But socially, there is definitely evidence-based through research and discussion with past foster children and foster families, and those who have been maybe approached by what we call CPS, and I think Kentucky does too, but Child Protective Services, and discussing with them, there are some services, there are some prevention services that we can get for your family to prevent them from coming into foster care. And this act, and also the Bipartisan Budget Act, will help those families and fund those programs, those services for those families to hopefully avoid ever being involved in the foster care or social services system. Economically, I think that kind of goes back to the Budget Act that's involved with this. That's where the money comes from. That's where the funding comes from. Politically, in Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn and all of our we have full legislative support on this. This was not a struggle to be passed. This act was not something that was debated on, juggled back and forth. Our Tennessee legislative members were fully behind supporting these prevention services. So I thought that was really good to note for you guys. Moving on to my advocacy intervention plan and goals and my proposals. I just wanted to touch on a few different bullet points that I noted. It is congruent with NASW practice, giving a fair chance to empower these families, to help these families solve their problems before they get even bigger and they get out of control. And when these families start losing their children, sometimes things start to fall apart and parents start losing sight of the hope and the chance that they have to be reunited. And we don't want that to happen. So I think lining up with an ASW practice and keeping caseworkers responsible and involved in preventing these things and giving these families a chance to heal and to empower themselves and to figure things out and prevent foster care from ever being a mark on their family, because foster care and being involved with DCS foster care definitely puts a negative light on a lot of families. I know from personal experience with my family, my aunt who has these two foster boys um, has gotten some looks and has had some discussions with people where they don't really understand why, why she gets to have them and why she got to take them away even though she didn't. And then just going back to her, her social worker, and then me even at my internship, a lot of people don't understand what we do. And so I think it is important to note that the NASW is definitely behind social workers in this and preventing these things from happening with families. And then next, I wanted to mention some target groups, which I already touched on a little bit, but some target groups for prevention services. So those who will be most likely to be involved with these prevention services that this act pushes forward and this act allows would be at-risk youth. So those youth living in poverty or with parents who've had past involvement with DCS, parents who have drug addictions or any kind of addiction, parents who just aren't really sure what to do with their children. Another group could be previous foster youth, so someone who's been in state's custody and then kind of is on the brink of coming back in because of behavior problems or mental health issues or whatever. Current foster youth, just to have a discussion with them on how to prevent this in the future. If they exit custody, how to prevent it from happening again. Because at a certain age, they will be able to be responsible for themselves and they need to know how to prevent these behaviors from happening. Let's see. Yes, those are target groups I mentioned. I know there's many more, but those are the ones I wanted to focus on. And those and also those in rural areas, they definitely are more at risk because they have a lack of access to services. Some goals that I wrote down and noted for you guys would be consistent programs, dedicated prevention services unit, caseworkers, that are just solely dedicated to prevention services. So they're not looking into having a variety of cases on their caseload, just those families who need the prevention services, because when they get distracted, things don't happen like they should. And these families aren't being met with the needs. They're not being met with the tools that they need to improve and to prevent their family from being involved in state's custody or DCS work. And also available funding would be a great goal. Treatment programs, like linked treatment programs. So when these prevention services caseworkers would go into the home, they would have available treatment programs or therapeutic programs to place these children in or these families in to prevent the foster care system from intervening. On another note, some barriers that I wanted to discuss a little bit would be, obviously, if the government decided that they didn't think that this would be useful for our state system, that would be an issue. That would be a barrier, because then the prevention services wouldn't be available for these children and families, and that would go against everything that we are trying to do right now. The cultures and beliefs was one thing I wanted to touch on, because many cultures have different beliefs and values on the involvement of government and the involvement of social workers, involvement of DCS or DCBS in their family. And sometimes it isn't okay for someone to come into their house and tell them how to parent or tell them how to prevent something from happening. Sometimes it's because they don't understand that what they're doing is not what our culture deems as appropriate. And so I know I've seen in my field, there's been multiple cultures at my field placement that we've been involved with, and they don't understand that it's not okay to not take your child to the doctor when they're sick. It's not okay to see therapy, or it's not okay to avoid therapy because you don't see it as appropriate for your child when they do need something. But you don't know what else to do. So you just let it go, and they need those therapeutic services. So this will also help show those services to families and hopefully give them a little education on how to handle things and, culturally handle things, be able to discuss with their case manager on what they would like to see for their child and how they would like to approach that and prevent foster care from happening. And I do believe that I have seen prevention, just to wrap everything up, I do believe that I have seen prevention services in progress at my field placement. I think that I've seen the case manager that I've been shadowing. I believe that she's done a great job at initially going up to her families on her caseload and discussing with them, like, this is what we need to do, and in the future these are some things that you can reach out to, and you can reach out to these people, you can reach out to these programs and these places, these therapists, these counselors. You can even reach back out to me, is what she says to these people on her caseload. And she says, this is how we can prevent it from happening the next time, and how you can discuss with people on how to prevent your child from ever having these issues again, and how we can help your child help themselves to prevent it in their future when they become an adult. So I do believe that this Prevention Services Act is going to be really great and has been really great so far in working with DCS and just state involvement with child welfare. And I hope that you guys can understand what I'm trying to educate myself on, and to educate you guys on, and educate anyone who reads this just a little more on how prevention services are very needed in our society. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of the week and a good weekend. Thanks for watching.